Good morning, everybody, or at least this morning for me. Welcome to today's video, which is going to be 20 Udyr habits keeping you poor. You guys seem to be enjoying this educational content, so I'm going to keep producing it for you. Do me a huge favor, though. Hit the like button if you do find yourself enjoying today's video. Also, leave a comment. It really helps the algorithm, and we're trying to grow the channel, trying to grow the stream. Let's get it. Enjoy.
You ain't nothing but a broke boy.
Too many times when I watch other people play Udyr or when I'm coaching people, you guys are not using your 2 auto attacks before switching into the next stance. And the reason why this is important is because it reduces the cooldown of your awakening. Even your bear stance, even though there's only 1 stun per target, you should still usually auto attack that target twice in bear stance before switching out of bear stance, so that way it drops the cooldown. It is extremely important for all aspects of Udyr, including farming, fighting, and even scaling into the late game. So in the same vein, too many times when I see people either farming their camps or fighting champions, you guys are rushing straight into your lightning Q instead of using the full 4 auto attacks. You guys don't know, when you go into Q, you've got 1, 2 press lightning Q, 3, 4 max health auto attacks built into that combo. Too many of you guys, when you're in those clutch scenarios, are just mashing your Q key, going straight into the lightning bolts, and you're missing out on 2 Q auto attacks. That is making the difference in those super close scenarios. Alright, this next tip might seem counterintuitive to what I just told you about using all of your auto attacks in each stance, but a lot of you guys early game may not realize that your W, while it is amazing for sustain, you don't actually need to be auto attacking over and over in W and E because you simply just don't have enough cooldown and attack speed yet. So let's say you just used your awakening, I don't know, and you need to go farm as a level 3 or a level 4 Udyr. You'll notice when you're farming, you actually don't have enough cooldown and attack speed to get all your auto attacks off. Instead, prioritize Q and your R permanently off cooldown and use your W and your E as kind of to fill the gap while you're waiting for the Q and the R. As you level up, this eventually doesn't become an issue and you've got enough cooldown and attack speed to just rotate your full kit. When you're doing Rift Herald, you never need to walk around Rift Herald to hit the eye because your E gives you ghosting. You can literally just run through Rift Herald with your E whenever you need to get to the back of it. There's a lot of people out there that know, but some of you guys may not know that there is an internal cooldown on Udyr where you cannot go into another stance for 6 seconds. So if I press W, see how I can't reactivate my W for 6 seconds. If there's an important fight coming up, like let's say you need to use your lightning Q, with 10 seconds left on my Q, the stupidest thing I could do is go into Q, go into bear stance, and then I've got 6 seconds on my Q cooldown. If you need to use an awakening and you're thinking about that, don't use that ability until the awakening is ready because you've got a very long internal cooldown before you can cycle back into that stance. Guys and gals, if you find yourself in this scenario where you are doing your krugs and potentially about to go gank bot, if you are in a raptor pit, potentially about to go contest dragon and or rift grubs and or a mid gank, of course rift grubs on the other side of the map there. If you are in a krug pit about to go gank a top laner, if you are in a grump hovering for a potential dive scenario, do not use your awakenings on your jungle camp. You're going to need that cooldown. I believe it's 50 seconds up until level 6, 40 seconds up until level 11, and 30 seconds up until level 16. That is a long cooldown. Do not use it on your jungle camps if you know you're about to fight. On the same token, if you are invading, do not use your awakening on the enemy jungle camps. Do not use your awakening on the enemy red buff. And please hold on to that cooldown. We're trying to kill the enemy jungle because if the enemy jungle dies, then you get the camps for free anyway. Of course, if it's a free invade scenario, like if the enemy jungle's dead and the mid laner's on the other side of the map or whatever, yeah, by all means, just power farm the jungle. I'm talking during contested invades where you don't necessarily know where the enemy jungle is. Do not use that awakening cooldown on the enemy jungle camps. Here at lolWillieP Incorporated, we believe in three simple things: freedom, the pursuit of happiness, and crabs. You should absolutely do crabs before doing the rift grubs or the dragons or whatever you're planning on doing, because movement speed on Udyr is everything. Again, I'm not talking about contested or like free objectives where you can just run in and get stuff for free. I'm saying if you know the enemy team could or could not show up, you don't really know, do the crab before the objective, because the movement speed allows you to chase those backline carries and kite out the frontline bruisers that Udyr is most likely going to be fighting. Understandably so, tank Udyr with Conqueror and approach velocity and building kind of tank items after Liandry's is the most popular form of playing Udyr. It usually involves putting points into your W second. In other words, we're maxing W second. A lot of you guys, and I mentioned this in my last Udyr video, do not factor in the fact that there are 3 champions in the game, Renekton, Rel, and Blitzcrank, that can easily pop super shields like Udyr's Awakened W. The other thing you have to think about is enemy champions that are physical, namely assassins, can build a lethality item called Serpent's Fang that will significantly reduce the value of your shields. You can either try and brute force through it with W max and Spirit Visage and hope that you can out sustain it, or the better bet is to just play a different version of Udyr where you'll be much more effective. If you are struggling in the Master Yi matchup, it is because you are not playing Q-Max Udyr. Master Yi, if you don't know, runs over a lot of forms of Udyr that I know and love. Q-Max Udyr or Tiger Udyr, whatever you want to call it, completely runs over Master Yi. It's a complete 180. Tiger Udyr is nearly impossible for Master Yi to win. It becomes one of the hardest matchups in the game for him, so please take me at my word. Play Q-Max Udyr into Master Yi almost always. One of the most fun parts about playing Udyr is the fact that you can literally build any item in the game. You've got a physical stance, you've got a magic stance, you've got kind of a tank stance that scales off your max health. You've got an E that gets really, really fast with movement speed items, so you can build anything in the shop. I would say any Udyr out there that is building the same items every single game, no matter what, is probably not familiar with Udyr and or needs to figure out that in every single build, even tank Udyr, the best items are going to be what the enemy team is weak to or has a vulnerability to, and you just exploit that with Udyr. Truly, Udyr can build anything in the shop, very similar to volibear. He's kind of a hybrid champ, so take advantage of that. The other incredible thing about Udyr is you can path anywhere you want. You can start red buff, you can start blue buff, you can start wolves, you can start raptors. You can do raptors to krugs like the normal, or you could even do raptors to wolves to gromp and do kind of a Shyvana dragon clear path. You can do any clear path in the game. You can invade weaker junglers. You can do defensive clear paths to protect yourself from invaders, where you do like red to blue or blue to red or vice versa. Take advantage of that, and if you are pathing the same every single game, regardless of team comp, regardless of build, I would probably say you're doing a few things wrong. Dragons are good on any champion in team comp, but on Udyr specifically, if you are ignoring dragons or you've been watching these skill capped or random videos telling you that dragons are not worth it, Udyr is a stat stick champ that loves getting dragons. Particularly, Chemtech Dragon improves not only your healing for Conqueror and your W, but it also gives you shield strength, which is insane. It gives you tenacity as well. Cloud Dragon gives you slow resistance. Mountain Dragon ramps up your base resistances and purchase resistances, and if you don't know, all resistances apply towards shields, so Mountain Dragon is incredible for Udyr as well. There are so many good dragons out there for Udyr, and specifically, like I said, think of Udyr kind of like Shyvana. Part of your win condition is getting these objectives to make your champion literally unkillable. Have you ever been in that scenario where the enemy team has a ton of crowd control, but they also have a ton of physical damage, or you want to go Swifties, but you also kind of want Merc Treads? Merc Treads in the shop, if you don't know, as a boot option is almost always going to be your best option. If you're ever in those scenarios where you're like, I could go armor boots, I could go Merc Treads, always go Merc Treads. Tenacity is incredibly important because not only does tenacity give you slow resistance, but it reduces the effectiveness of other crowd control effects. As Udyr without a gap closer, your biggest weakness will always be slows and crowd control effects. So these boots in particular are very, very good on Udyr. It's kind of funny because this item just got nerfed, so this may no longer hold true, but the item Dead Man's Plate for a long time has been considered the best second option for Udyr after Liandry's. I personally think this item is overrated, and we can go into a lot of reasons why. Pop by my stream sometime and ask me why, but the data is actually skewed because if you look at the other options, usually there are way better options second. It's just how the data works and how aggregated data works, essentially. Dead Man's Plate will always look at like a very high win rate second option. This item is not only overpowered, but it just got nerfed to only give 15% slow resistance. You can get slower resistance on not only Merc Treads and Swifties, but you can get way better armor items, namely Frozen Heart, for much, much cheaper. I think the Udyr community is overvaluing this item and has a lot of better options in their pocket that they should be building in a larger percentage of the time. There are a lot of team comps out there that are very, very hard for Udyr, and if you guys don't know, there are a few things that happen when you level up your E on Udyr. Not only do you get faster, normally you can only stun each target every 6 seconds. At max ranks, that drops to every 4 seconds. E max second is really, really good against bruisers and or team comps where you have a lot of chasing in your future. For a long time, Tiger Udyr or QMax Udyr players have been maxing E second, but if you are looking at the enemy team saying, geez, I need a lot of movement speed, sometimes RW max may not be your best bet. Sometimes you should do RE max or QE max builds instead of just doing the standard tank build with every single point in W second. So most people know that for your first clear, usually your best bet is using your Awaken R at the last second on these Krugs here, because what it does is it'll essentially just burn down the little Krugs for you with your pet autoing and all that. But honestly, past your first clear, this little maneuver is really not worth it unless it's just a perfect awakening cycle and like you just manage to squeak out an extra awakening at the end and you're resetting or something. Usually it's better to open with your lightning Q on the Krugs, and then by the time the Krugs are done, with one R tick, by the time you get a points in R, or you get a Tiamat, or more points in Q. But when you're a higher level on Udyr, those little Krugs will die instantly, and it's not worth using your Awakening. Again, this little Awakening R burn trick is amazing for the first clear, but past the first clear, don't overdo it. Save the lightning Q for the red buff, or the Awaken R for the Raptors. Usually it's a lot faster. The fastest way to do Rift Grubs on Udyr, if you don't know, is by walking in. As you walk in, press your W, turn on your R. As your R is on, these little grubs are going to spawn. You go into QQ, and this guy near the entrance is isolated, and then you finish this guy down. Keep in mind, I don't have items, so this takes a second. After this guy is down, then you recharge your Awakening on these back two. And then by the time your Awakenings recharge, normally with items, this last one's the last guy alive, and you isolation Q, burn it down. It's the fastest way to do Rift Grubs. It's way faster than clumping them and trying to Awaken R them. Even if you're playing R-Max with Liandry's, it is still faster to isolation burn them just because it just does more damage. If you've ever watched a high elo Udyr streamer, you're probably going to get bored really quickly at the amount of farming, and that's because most Udyr players understand that farming and scaling is usually the easiest path to victory for Udyr. Your entire kit is designed to scale because you've got max HP damage. You really are weaker early on because you don't have an ultimate, and other champions get ultimates at level 6. And your kit is designed just to be a rotating, in-their-face, never-dying kit, which usually needs items and golds to get to that point. If you are an Udyr player and you are forcing early game ganks, and keep in mind, emphasis on the word force, absolutely go for the free ganks. Help your team out, counter gank if you can. I am talking about if you've got one of those scenarios where you don't know if you can get the kill or not, just keep farming. Farming is really, really important on Udyr, and 99% of the time, it's why most people get stuck low elo with Udyr, is because you guys get to like level 7 or 8, you get lolWilliePs, and then you stop farming, and the whole point is just to continue getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Finally, the other extremely common low elo Udyr habit that I tend to see people making the mistake is you guys don't use your Awaken W. If you ask most high elo Udyr players what's the most broken ability on Udyr, most of them would answer W, and here's why. Udyr can mitigate a ton of damage. It also is like a mini Mundo ult, so it gives you upfront mitigation so you can continue to fight. And it scales extremely well with resistances and other health and ability power if you manage to build AP health items like lolWilliePs, Rift Maker. This ability can truly get insane. You guys, a lot of the times at low elo, are pressing Awaken R or Awaken E way too much. You should almost always, especially if you're playing tank Udyr and maxing W second, be saving the cooldown so you can use Awaken W because it is that broken. You really need to be thinking about this as your powerhouse ability on most forms of Udyr if you're not trying to be the star of the show and building straight damage. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, I really do appreciate each and every one of you. Make sure to leave a like and comment below. It really helps the algorithm, and at this point, I'm at y'all's mercy. So if you did enjoy today's video, please let me know by leaving a comment, liking, and please subscribe if you're new around here. I'd love to see you. Head over to the Twitch. We've also got TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff. Look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Bye.